In the program, when you get to the outside the box lead gen panel, you're going to see a picture of a nutcracker that looks like a Nordic Viking. And the reason that that is there is because way back when I was still an agency, I used an outside the box lead gen tactic that worked like gangbusters, and it involved that nutcracker. And I want to tell you that story briefly before we start the panel here, so you can get an idea of how even the most obscure and ridiculous ideas, if done well, can turn into opportunity. So on the very first day that I opened my agency back in 2014, my father came to my office on the very first day and he brought me that nutcracker. And my dad, my entire younger life, my childhood and whatnot, he was a collector of nutcrackers. And as a kid, I always liked to fool around with them, right? They look like toys. They're not toys. My dad will be the first to tell you that. They're very expensive. They're very valuable. But he had all these nutcrackers, and I was always enamored with them growing up. And then on the very first day that I opened my agency, my dad brought that nutcracker up to the office. And he said, you know what? You've been talking about these things your entire life. This one kind of looks like you a little bit. Good luck with the office. This one's for you. And it was an emotional moment for me when he gave it to me because it was the first day of my new agency and whatnot. And it sat on my desk for about 3 months until one day I had a client in my office and they commented on the nutcracker, on how cool it was, how unique it was, what's the story behind it, whatever. And I spoke about it a little bit, and the client that I was sitting with told me, you should use that in your marketing. And I said to myself, like, how am I gonna use a nutcracker in my marketing? Especially, like, I was with a captive carrier. It was like, I can't do shit with this company right now. So I started thinking about it, and what I began to do with this nutcracker was I would bring it with me when I would do home inspections. And when I was done doing the inspection, what I would do is I would put the nutcracker on the curb outside of the property, and I would get down low on the ground and I would take a picture of the nutcracker in the foreground with the house that I was insuring in the background. And this was like before hashtags, but I started something consistently around the nutcracker, and we wound up the office. We had to come up with a name with it, a name for the nutcracker, right? Somehow the nutcracker got named Miking the Viking, and because obviously it looks a little bit like me, and it's obviously a Viking, and it rhymes, and why not? But so that nutcracker that was showing up on curbs all around the five-town area that I was prospecting and doing business became like this thing amongst my audience of where's the miking gonna pop up next? And just by posting that nutcracker Viking, each time I did an inspection, there would be people in the comments, where is he? It turned into like a scavenger hunt. And the engagement on those posts where people were guessing where he was turned into, almost every single time, a conversation about homeowners insurance somewhere in the comments. And what wound up happening was Miking the Viking became a very consistent lead generator for me for homeowners insurance. And it was quite possibly the wackiest thing that I had ever done at that point to generate leads.